And what does a live stream look like? It looks like we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Snap podcast. I believe we are on our big 3-0 now. We have hit 30 episodes, 30 weeks of college football. Hope you all enjoy. And now we're talking about week two. What happened last week? Why was it so chaotic to put together a power ranking, especially after Notre Dame pooped the bed with Northern Illinois? Or is Northern Illinois just the third best team in the country? Who knows? Um, for this episode, we're going to bring you our reactions to the games, um, who got a better prediction on the games, and then we're going to be previewing some of next week's top games. And lastly, we're going to be showing you our BFER poll, who is the number one team in the country, as always, and who is the new intro. Anyways, let's get into it. Starting off with the first game that we're reacting to, we're talking about, of course, Michigan taking on Texas. Kieran, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so Michigan is not what they were last year. I think that's clear. I had hopes preseason that Alex Orji would be able to be that guy for them. He'd be able to deliver. And then they went with Davis Warren, which was warranted, getting based on all of his better passing and just the better overall characteristics that he has as a quarterback. But Michigan is still having struggles. Donovan Edwards had a really rough game, like he had against Fresno State. It's almost looking like he's starting to fall down the depth chart, maybe to RB3, but Michigan is just not there. Their defense isn't there. Will Johnson is not playing like he did last year. I think it has to be said. He's allowed touchdowns and catches more in the first two games than he did for all of last season, which is a crazy, crazy stat. So you really can't say that Michigan is a super elite team. The Big Ten is really starting to fall apart, honestly. We'll talk about Oregon later, but it is really kind of falling apart. So to me, Michigan is not an elite team, but Texas did absolutely shellac them. I thought it would be bad, but I didn't think it was that close. My prediction was turned out to be okay, but not nearly as bad as it should have been. I had them 28-20. I thought they might win by two scores. They won by three or four, even maybe. So it's really a slacking. Texas looked amazing. Michigan's D line is not there. Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham are not the players that we think they are. And if they are, then Texas's O line is the best O line in the country. I think I can say that pretty much emphatically. If Michigan is as good as everyone thinks they are, then Texas O line is just better.
Yeah. My reaction to the game was really, I think more people expected Michigan just to show up. I mean, you talk about whenever everyone was there, Pat McAfee keeps talking about how the environment, the energy in that stadium was so alive, was so livid, that it would be a hard place for anybody to play. But Sarkisian came into the game knowing he was going to win. He carried that throughout his team, and everybody on that field made plays. So, like Quinn Ewers, I mean, he has to be in the Heisman talks. Him, Carson Beck have been playing absolutely phenomenal right now. No wonder why the AP poll also has them at 1 and 2. Might I just say AP poll did copy us because we put them at 1 and 2 last week. Just want that to be noticed. What else happened? The addition of Andrew Makuba returning to Texas was a absolutely critical piece in that secondary, as I believe he recorded multiple pass deflections, including an interception. I mean, he is a veteran that you needed on that secondary just after what happened with Washington, and that's just going to make the team all that more deadly. Blue is still running the ball absolutely well. Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, all these guys, great fits for the offense. I mean, if you're a Texas fan right now, I know we know one of them, you're probably a happy camper. And then additionally, Michigan, like Kieran said, it just looked hectic on the other side. The quarterback issues, I mean, I can relate with those issues, but having a mix up with quarterbacks, not knowing who you're going to start, you don't know who's going to be the best. Donovan Edwards, who came in acting like he was like one of the best players. I don't know why everyone thought that because he's the cover athlete of the new game. Everyone thought, oh, he's going to be phenomenal. He looks horrid. And yeah, Kieran's right. The Big Ten is really a toss up now. Besides from Ohio State, of course. If Ohio State is really that dominant, yes, they haven't been tested though. But if Ohio State is really that dominant, it looks like a one pony race where they're just gonna take it away because Oregon stinker, Michigan stinker, and let's just keep it at that for right now. So moving on to our second game. This was an upset alert, and this was actually SEC South Carolina taking on Kentucky, where the Gamecocks won it.
So I'm just gonna say this: Beaver Ball is back, baby! So that was an amazing win from South Carolina. Bakari Sellers, their quarterback, was out at some points, but the backup came in and just absolutely was able to pummel Kentucky. The defense looked lights out. Brock Vandegrift didn't know what he was doing. I mean, he was like stepping up into the pocket, getting hit by somebody, trying to escape the pocket, getting hit by somebody, sacked everywhere. Absolute offensive carnage. Just pure chaos and swagger from South Carolina.
Yeah, I don't think
And
anyone expected
dominating.
this game to go this way. Honestly, I didn't expect it to go this way. Yeah. Sellers, I believe he threw for 159 yards, 2 TDs. I mean, carnage is how you describe this game. If you had to look back on this game, this was carnage. This was like Bambi versus the Hunter, where Kentucky was Bambi. That's enough about them. They actually have. If you think this was bad, tune in next week where they got to play the Bulldogs, and then hopefully they get their stuff together. If not, carnage. Um, so yeah, that moves on that game. Now we're talking about a good old rivalry game: the Hawkeyes and the Cyclones, Iowa State. Kieran, what about the game was so special?
So it was an amazing come behind win from Iowa State. They were down at some points by 17 points in the third quarter. They're able to come back, get the win by one on a field goal that would have been good from like 70 yards. I mean, it was a 52-yard field goal, and he cleared the uprights by like 10 yards, or cleared the crossbar by like 10 yards straight down the pipe. Beautiful kick. Rocco Beck looked really good. That final game drive, what really struck me was his poise. He was able to find his guys. The absolute beautiful play where he hits his receiver down the sideline. They ran a post and then that wheel route. Perfect. He just lays it in there. Safety doesn't have time to react, and you get 35 and get out of bounds. And that's just what is brilliant to me about how their offense was working when it started clicking. And they were able to hold Iowa to, well, actually, Iowa's offense isn't that great, but Iowa State was able to hold Iowa, keep themselves in it, and then come back and use their high-flying offensive capability that Iowa does not possess to make plays and win the game. And it was amazing, just team effort and a good result for Iowa State. And I think they're going to roll on.
Yeah, and just to add to what Kieran said, Iowa State, especially Iowa, started the game off really hot, really hot, and the fact that Iowa State didn't lose any confidence, they went into the locker room, they came back out and scored 14 immediately to open up the third quarter. I mean, great performance, especially when we talk about Iowa. Iowa, we like to compare to. I mean, it's hard to compare them to anyone. We could just say they have one of the best defenses and one of the worst offenses. They're one of those teams where it's like almost a 50-50 split. It's yin and yang. Uh, but in this case, you can see Iowa State was able to do well against that defense, especially in the second half of the game. And I mean, what a kick! That was a crazy ending to a phenomenal game. So, congrats to the Cyclones. You guys are moving up in the BFER poll, and Iowa. We will talk about you later. Moving on, we have just a quick upset alert that we called last week. So last week we added in the notes that we thought Oregon might get upset by Boise State. How Kieran wrote that perfectly. I mean, Boise State came within 3 points of beating Oregon in Oregon. So keep that in mind. So, what am I trying to say? Boise State might be a favorite to win the FCS. Them and Liberty, I would say right now. Them, Liberty, Middle Tennessee Tech are your expected 12 seeds, at least for my opinion. And Oregon, what happened? Why is the Big Ten horrible? Is the new Power Two conference supposed to be SEC and Big 12? Was I mistaken this entire time? Who knows? But that's all I have to say about Oregon, Boise State. Karen, anything to add on them?
So Oregon is struggling. their offensive line was supposed to be, it was not the consensus, but they thought that they would have one of the best offensive lines in the country with the likes of your Georgias and your Texases, right? They had a lot of returning talent and they had a lot of size, strength, and just blocking ability at those front five positions. And that's not the case. Dylan Gabriel was sacked 4 times last night. He was hurried a lot and they just didn't look consistent. And I will remind you that so Boise State had every right to win this game. The only reason they didn't is that Oregon returned 2 kickoffs and they had 2 special teams touchdowns, which are great plays to Evan Stewart, but you have to understand that that's not expected points. You can't rely on touchdowns from kickoff returns, touchdowns from your defense, things like that that are pretty rare happenings to score consistent points to beat a group of 5 team. That's just not how that works. And Oregon has issues moving forward if their offense can't get it together and their defense can't stop a team with significantly less talent and raw athletic prowess than they have.
Yeah. So yeah, Big Ten in shambles is what you could say. Okay, and then moving on to the Duke Mayo Classic. This was featured with NC State and Tennessee, and let me tell you, it was a one-sided affair. Tennessee ran through, destroyed, crushed the hopes of the Wolfpack. Nico Yamaleva honestly looked like he was probably a generational quarterback. He almost line of the Tennessee like trilogy with Hendon Hooker and then Peyton Manning, and now it's him, or in the other order, Peyton Manning, Hendon Hooker, him. Um, well, Peyton Manning, Hendon Hooker, Joe Milton, him. Just so we're officially got all the players. Um, but yeah, Tennessee looked absolutely dominant. I can't wait to watch them play Alabama. I can't wait for them to play Georgia. It's another one of those years. It's one of those revitalization years. Like finally, after a 3-year break, Tennessee is just now returning back to when they beat Bama in that super game. I don't know if everyone remembers that game, but that game was absurd. Anyways, Kieran, anything to add on that one?
Yeah, so Tennessee, again, dominating performance, really on the defense. To stifle, I mean, Grayson McCall at Coastal Carolina was one of the best quarterbacks in terms of stats in college football. He had amazing numbers of touchdowns, really limited his turnovers, but he threw a pick 6 in this one, right? And he just, NC State overall wasn't able to get their offensive kind of the machine, right? Because your offense is like a train, right? It just a little bit at a time, like chug, 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 and then eventually it is a thousands of ton beast rolling at several tens of 50, 60 miles an hour. It's impossible to stop, right? But you have to build that momentum, build that force, and build that just absolute leaning on the defense. And they didn't do that. The defense leaned on them. James Pierce Jr., the defensive line overall played incredible. They're going to be a hard group to deal with come the Georgia game, come games later in the season. And Tennessee is looking really, really good right now. I think there is a non-zero chance that they are in contention to go to Atlanta.
Oh yeah. And wrapping that up was our prediction. So we didn't officially tell you all the predictions. So Kieran got the Texas Michigan game correct, or at least more correct than I did. I said the game would be a 3-point win for Texas. Kieran said it'd be 8. Kieran was closer. He gets the point there. For the Kentucky game, we both predicted Kentucky to win. How were we wrong? Uh, Kentucky won 20, or Kieran called it by 10 points, 24-14. I called it by 25 points, 35-10. I really thought Kentucky was good. Turns out they're not. And then Kieran won again. Iowa, he called 17-10 in favor of the Hawkeyes. I called it 24-3 in favor of the Hawkeyes. He won again. And then Tennessee, we didn't get to both predict. He only got to predict it, and he got it right. But we're gonna avoid that one because I don't want to be down 7-2. So now I'm only down 6-2.
So Kirtan is rigging this here, is what you're hearing.
It's not
But
rigging.
it's
called
okay
fading.
because even when Michigan steals your signs, they still lose. So,
Our Stallions.
it is what it is. But Yeah, great set of games. And now we're going to move to perhaps the biggest headline of the week. Kirtan, what happened in South Bend, Indiana, and why were a bunch of people with Notre Dame tattoos on their cheeks being washed away by the tears and the anguish and regret
Uh,
of picking the wrong transfer quarterback?
all I can say is that Riley Leonard is indeed. Wait, what is? I'm getting a call. Yep, yep. Oh, it's Riley Leonard. Oh, yeah. Potential fraud. Oh no, no, is a fraud. Yep. Duke's quarterback Riley Leonard, this just in, is actually a fraud and should never have left. And Notre Dame may have just screwed their season. It did screw their season. Yeah, what happened? You could say that when you have David and when you have Goliath, but David in this universe is a mouse, and Notre Dame is a fighting Irishman. Turns out the Irish people are scared of mice in this universe because Northern Illinois upset the number 5 ranked team in the nation because Notre Dame sucks and Northern Illinois is the next coming of the Bama dynasty. That's basically what happened. Notre Dame played absolutely horrendous. They played to the level of talent they were playing in that game, and that just turns out to be an FCS school. If they do that ever again against any decent team, any team in the world would beat them. Uh, Basically, we saw the Northern Illinois coach cry because I don't think he thought it was possible for his team to even come within 20 points, let alone win. So that guy is definitely getting a major pay raise. I think that was what he was crying about, the fact that he's about to get a big old bonus. And with that, according to the AP poll, Northern Illinois is your 25th best team in the nation. So keep that in mind. Teams like who didn't make it? There was a lot of teams that people said were worse than Illinois, including or Northern Illinois, including Indiana, including Illinois. I don't think made it. Uh,
Kentucky.
Notable misses: Boise State,
Yeah.
Texas A&M, all
Yeah.
didn't make their fall, but Northern Illinois did, guys. So great job.
Also, Texas A&M fans, I hate to point this out, but you lost to Notre Dame at home.
True.
Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois at home.
True.
Now, if we were to rank said teams, this means
True.
that A&M would be behind Northern Illinois.
Yes, and according to I don't know how many people out here have taken logical reasoning as a class, but according to the statement that Notre Dame beat Texas A&M, Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame, Northern Illinois beat A&M. Great job, Aggies. You lost to an FCS school, and yeah, that was embarrassing.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even know what to say at this point. It's the shock is amazing. This might be 2007.
I'm
Northern
speechless.
Illinois might win the national title somehow. Um, yeah, I'm at a loss.
Speechless.
Yeah,
Speechless. Anyways, that recaps probably the craziest game that you will see this season. Arguably, I will say the biggest upset of the season, and probably will be the biggest upset at the end of the season, is Notre Dame losing to Northern Illinois when they were favored by 49.5 points. Um, so yeah, that was a fun week. Thanks for messing up our rankings, Northern Illinois. God, you know how hard it was for us to fix the BFER poll after y'all did that?
yeah. It's a
Anyways,
mess.
moving on, we have our predictions. So we're looking at week 3 now. Week 2 is in the past. Let's move on to week 3. And let's start off with the game of the week. Arizona taking on Kansas State in a Big 10 matchup, or in a Big 12 matchup.
Yeah, so
Kieran, who
this
do
is
you got?
also actually Friday night in prime time.
Oh,
So
we
the
won't be
best game of
watching.
the week happens on Friday.
And we won't be
Yay!
watching it because we'll be in a game.
We
Yay.
play Thursday.
Really?
Yeah, the football gods have been nice to us. So we are excited about this game, and it's really, I think, a sneaky good matchup because Kansas State, their defense had some struggles against Tulane, and Tulane, it was a pretty high flying offense. Kansas State had a very, very struggling win there was able to pull it out the last minute, but have some concerns about defense and as well offense. Their offense was able to find their rhythm towards the end, but they weren't able to put Tulane away. And it was a sneaky good game, but I think this is also going to be a sneaky good game because on the other side you have Arizona. And what Tulane I don't think has is the same caliber of quarterback wide receiver duo that Noah Fafita and Tito McMillan are at Arizona. So there is a chance Arizona is able to keep this close. It's a blowout. There's a lot of different situations I can see here. I think Kansas State is overall the more solid team, and I think Avery Johnson will be able to get his guys together. I think they'll be able to prevail, but I think it'll be close. But the biggest questions for me are again Kansas State's defense and how electric and explosive are Tito McMillan and Noah Fafita on the Arizona side. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a close game. I had a hard time predicting this one. I have Kansas State 35-28.
Yeah, and I think this game is going to be crazy, crazy close. I honestly am very shocked by Arizona. Arizona has turned their program around in 2 years, are now contending for the Big 12, and I think this is going to be one of your deciding games for the Big 12. I think it's a three-team race. I think it's called Kansas State, Arizona, Utah. Unless we see a big change from Oklahoma State if they can pull that away, because I know a lot of people think they're going to win, but they looked a little bit shaky against Arkansas. Anyways, I think that Theodore McMillan will have to prove to us why he is so good and why he deserves to be or considered one of the best receivers. I think Avery Johnson needs to, yeah, exactly. He needs to find his rhythm. He needs to know what he's doing. He's got to get into the groove. But for that reason, I think it's going to be mighty tight. I think it's going to be a very fun Friday for us to watch, especially because we don't got a game. And so for that reason, I would say it's going to be 31-35, a winner for Kansas State towards the end.
There
Alrighty,
you
and
go.
then moving on, we have a game between Wisconsin and your Crimson Tide. Crimson Tide, by the way, are favored by 16.5 in this one.
Yeah, so this is actually the college game day game, which is kind of ridiculous. But there are some, I think, better games elsewhere on the lineup, but none of them really have the headline branding like this game does. So, can Alabama overcome their offensive struggles? They had struggles, particularly along the offensive line and at running back and at receiver core. Oh, that's almost the whole offense against USF, who they sleepwalked through last year. This year, the final score looked a little better, but I think USF had a better chance to win it in the closing minutes before Alabama pulled away. A couple better coaching decisions by USF, and I think this game could have been theirs. They made a weird decision to kick as opposed to go for it, and that just kind of had some cascading effects later down the line. They spent some timeouts inefficiently and all of that. But for me, the big question for this game is can Alabama answer those offensive struggles? The next question is Caden Proctor good to go? He was out for this game. Is he going to be back in? It seemed like it was a mild injury, but we're not entirely sure at this point at time of recording. But if he's good to go, hopefully their offensive line could be improved because the guy that replaced him at right tackle had, I believe, like 4 holding penalties in that game, which obviously is going to hold your team back if you're holding that much.
Yeah. And just,
So, yeah.
yep, go ahead.
So, the other question for me on Wisconsin side, can Tyler Van Dyke show out, not throw any turnovers, and get Alabama a win, or is he going to be able to prevail for Wisconsin? That's kind of the question. I think Bama's going to win it by a country mile. To me, it's 49. I'm going to say it's kind of a shootout, 49-35.
Wow. Just a quick update. College Game Day is actually not going to this game, but they're rather going to the LSU South Carolina game. Um,
Really?
yeah,
Greg
yeah,
McElroy lied to me.
yeah. But anyways, yeah, for this game, I think it's really can Alabama get back in the groove. I don't know why Alabama struggles so much with the USF. It's sad to say that Alabama honestly has a rivalry with the USF Bulls. Um, yeah, the greatest team known to make the greatest college football team, and USF are right.
Wee.
Anyways, I think Bama's looking for a bounce back win. I think that they gotta do what they did last year and say, like, look, we may lose to the USF because they are somehow the best team in the nation, but we now have to bounce back and we have to go get a win. And what better way to do it than playing a Power Five team like Wisconsin, getting a win, showing out. And so for this reason, I think Jalen Milroe is going to go crazy, and this game is going to be 42-10. Killer. Alrighty, moving on. We have another fun SEC matchup. We have the Aggies taking on the Gators. Aggies in this game are favored by 3.5 points. How does this affect the legacy? Let's see, Kieran.
Yeah, so this game could be really interesting for me. DJ Lagway started last week for Florida, had some insane stats, 3 TDs, I believe it was 456 yards passing. And Graham Mertz, it's unclear if he's available, and if he's available, if he will start over DJ Lagway. So not exactly sure, but I'm going to say I think DJ Lagway is probably going to have the job. We don't know yet. But presuming that he does have the job, can he show out against a better defense? The secondary isn't great, but the pass rush has been pretty good. So can he escape and find his receivers downfield like he did this past week against Sanford? But the bigger question for me is on the A&M side. Is Wigman better?
Yeah, I think
What?
so.
What?
You had a little bit of lag. We almost lost you for a minute.
Oh, well,
But you're back now.
God love
Finish
the
up your
internet.
lessons.
Yeah, so what I was saying is, can Texas A&M improve? Can Connor Wigman be better than he was against Notre Dame? Do they play to the level of the competition, or are they going to find a way to beat Florida? That's my question. I think A&M's the more talented team, and I just think more is at stake for Florida, and I think they've got a better quarterback, if I'm being honest. So to me, I have Florida 31-28.
Yeah. And I think, especially if DJ Lagway is playing out of his mind. So he played Stanford, had 456 yards, 3 TDs. That was all in the air. And then don't forget, he also ran for 16 yards. I mean, I think that the Gators have found their quarterback for the future. I also want to say I predicted this because I did say that DJ Lagway would take over. And whenever I play NCAA, just a fun fact, I always sub out Graham Mertz for DJ Lagway. Just a fun fact. Um, I think that this game will be good for A&M because I think A&M right now are really trying to figure out who they are as a program, especially after the week 1 loss. I think they're really considering, like, where do we belong? Where do we stand in the SEC? And I feel like they're going to be like Alabama last year. Alabama really didn't know where they were, especially when they had Jalen Milroe, again, the exact same spot against USF. They had no clue who they were as a team, where they stood. But now they understand where they are, and I feel like the same thing's going to happen with Aggies. I hope Aggies have a great game, but I believe this game, I don't know where it is. I'm hoping that it's in Texas because I would love to see a DJ Lagway return to this great state, and I think it's going to be a battle. However, I do have this game finishing 35-24 in favor of the Aggies. Alrighty. Moving on to our last couple of games, we have Georgia playing Kentucky. Kieran, what are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, so the question for me here is Brock Vandegrift serviceable at quarterback? I think I don't know. He backed up some really great quarterbacks, got to be on some national championship teams, and maybe he's thinking, is it worth it? Was it worth it to transfer to Kentucky and play? Especially when you're getting body bagged by South Carolina. Does Kentucky have an offense? Can they find any semblance of a balanced attack? Are they going to be able to survive against a fierce Georgia pass rush and a great Georgia secondary? And I think Georgia rolls. I just think they're the better team. Carson Beck, that combination. Georgia and Texas, if I'm being completely honest, are starting to look really similar. You've got Andrew Makuba for Texas. You've got Malachi Starks for Georgia. You have those stud players in the secondary. You got Jahdae Barron too. You have a great up front defensively, great quarterback, good running back, great weapons, amazing tight end. It's starting to look real similar. Great O line. So that's going to be an absolutely fascinating matchup come October. But right now, I think Georgia adds to the South Carolina list of teams that beat Kentucky by a lot, and they beat them 49-14.
Yeah, and just to add, as Kieran was comparing the number 2 team against the number 1 team, everything he basically said, we have an improvement on QB, we have the better quarterback, running back, we have the better running back, receivers, he might have us beat, defense, literally in every facility, we have him beat. So,
All right, all
just
right.
try to keep it honest. Anyways, yeah, I think that Rock Vandegrift, he's going to get a rude awakening when he plays his old team. I'm actually hoping that he performs better because he's going to say, oh, I used to play for Georgia, blah, blah, blah. Guys, look at my ring. Yeah, no. I think he's going to also get steamrolled. And Kentucky, great fall off, guys. Great, 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 great fall off. You're going to lose 56-17. Yeah. Okay, and then moving on to our interesting game that we chose, we have the UCF Knights taking on TCU. This game should be a great matchup. Kieran, what do we know about them?
Yeah, so TCU has had some struggles during the early part of the season, but they've actually looked reasonable. And I think that in this kind of bottom tier of the Big 12, right, as Gus Malzahn works to build up UCF, as as TCU looks to recover from their kind of really bad fall off after a really good season. So that's, you have a lot of those type of questions in this game. I think it'll be a good game. I I think UCF squeaks out a win. We're not going to get too deep into this one because we like to keep it a shorter podcast during the season, but I think UCF wins 24-21.
Yeah. And I would say the exact same. I think it's going to be a close game. TCU looking for that redemption. Can they bring back what happened in 2022, I think it was, when they lost to Georgia in epic fashion? But I don't see it happening. I truly don't. So I think the UCF Knights are going to win 24-17. Just a little bit closer than what Kieran said. Or a little bit wide, I think, what Kieran said. One touchdown. Okay, so that wraps up this part of the episode. Now we move on to everyone's favorite, the BFER poll update. Let's do it.
Good Lord, this is going to be a mess.
Yeah, have fun, guys, trying to figure out everything that we did here because it was not fun for us to figure out. So, yeah.
Oh, you see my brilliant prediction record? How I'm the best there's ever
Yeah,
been.
so Kieran right now is up 6-2 in predictions. But let's get into our week 2 matches.
All right, so Georgia, same, great. Texas, absolutely shellacked Michigan, still the same. But I will say, for me and for most of the numbers that we generate regarding this, that Georgia Texas, what who we would favor and by how much has gone down based on how Texas has been doing. And Ohio State is that third team. For me, I think Ohio State's been doing great. And solid third team, still the same. Old Miss is, to me, they're the fourth horse in this race. I think they're in that tier of those top three. And then you get to Alabama, Missouri, Tennessee, and Miami. Tennessee has jumped up quite a bit due to their dominating win at NC State. Miami has been raised by people dropping, and Oregon and Penn State round out the top 10. For me, the gap there is between, honestly, Ole Miss and Alabama. I think that's where it lies. But the rest of that top 10 is pretty close. But I think those top four are separating.
Yeah. And I would even go as far as to say I think the top 3 are separating. I honestly see this being a 3-team dominance run. I say Georgia cannot be matched. Texas right now does not look to be matched. Ohio State, they haven't played anyone good yet, but they are still unmatched. Ole Miss, honestly, you can also say the same for them. They were unmatched. Bama had a little bit of a struggle streak against USF, but luckily we were able to take care of business late in the fourth quarter. Mizzou, same thing. They're actually going to get a nice little test this week. I believe they're taking on someone good. I don't believe they're ranked, but they are going to take on a good opponent. Um, what else? Tennessee jumping to 7 from I believe what it was at 10. This is just because you played a NC State who was previously ranked, and you smacked them. Literally went. So
Yeah.
yeah, you move
And
up.
just for posterity's sake, Mizzou plays Boston College.
Yeah, and according to the AP poll, Mizzou or Boston College is the 23rd best team in the nation, 24th best team in the nation, and so that will be a fun ranked matchup. But of course, we don't have Boston College on ours because we don't believe that they belong to be that high. And then yeah, and then towards the bottom you have Miami. Miami and Tennessee are both going to keep climbing the ranks. They might stop after they get to number 6. I don't know how Mizzou's going to perform against Boston College, but we have to see. And then Miami, same thing, going to keep climbing. And then you get to Washington and Penn State, and for that one, I mean, both these teams had a little bit of a struggle last week, so that's why they fell a little bit. But still 9 and 10, so that rounds out our top 10. Kieran, you want to get into the messy part?
Yeah, so 11 is fairly clean. USC got a nice win. They're up 7 because of teams above them losing, struggling, dying. Um, Utah is up 5 because they're. This is kind of last man standing, honestly. They were able to get a win, not in super impressive fashion. Cam Rising got injured. What's new? But it appears that it's minor and he should be back. So that's why they're 12. Oklahoma State sitting at 13. Absolute struggle over Arkansas, but they showed that they can come from behind. So to me, they have to be ranked 13th because I think that was the best team. It's an SEC team in Arkansas, and they look pretty good. And that got a win. LSU is down 1. They had a struggle win against Nichols. I know they won by 20 points, but at some point in the fourth quarter, it was 24-21 Nichols. So got to watch that. Clemson up 1, absolutely dominated App State. Caleb Klubnik looked great, but is he going to be good against top tier competition or the ACC, whatever that is? So then you have Kansas State, struggle win at Tulane, as we mentioned earlier, but it's a win nonetheless. Now, Oklahoma. Oklahoma is dropping 3 for us because they nearly got beat by Houston. A little bit better decision making by Houston. A couple better choices, one play, and that is a Houston victory. And Houston was last year the worst team in the Big 12. Can't be letting that happen, especially if now that you're an SEC team. So they dropped 3. Michigan lost at Texas, got pantsed, doesn't have an offense. Defense is not what we thought it was, dropped to 18. Iowa State is your number 19 team. They're up 6, got an amazing win at Iowa for the trophy that they play for. Cannot remember what it is. I know that it's huge. So great win by them. Rocco Beck looking amazing. Offense looking great. Defense good enough. Nebraska pantsed Colorado. Absolutely embarrassed Shedeur Sanders, the best quarterback in the draft. Colorado is not better on their offensive line. I think that's clear. And Dylan Raiola is the real deal. The Pat Mahomes comparisons are already starting. It is too early for that, but good job, Dylan. And your team is now ranked 20th. We have Notre Dame at 21, falling 12 spots. The reason they didn't fall farther is honestly because this is a power rating. If this is a ranking, they are getting out of there. But the players are still in the building and they can play better. Texas A&M down 2, fine win. Other teams moved up and we think would beat them. Louisville is in at 23. Arizona's in at 24, and Syracuse with a win over Georgia Tech. How do you let yourself get embarrassed like that? And Kyle McCord playing lights out. Cannot believe Ohio State gave him away. There you go. That is your BFER power poll. So It's absolutely chaotic. And Kirtan, do you want to express your pain at having to organize this?
Yeah. Towards the top of this, let's talk about 11 through 18 was a nightmare to deal with. USC has to go up. I think that they just showed incredible dominance, and Miller Moss is honestly looking great. Um, I think that he's going to be great in 2 years, especially. He might honestly be a Heisman candidate. Utah, very, very, very strong defensive performance against Baylor. Cam Rising, of course, was gone because he got injured, but yeah, at least he'll be back. And we still think that once you have your quarterback like Cam Rising, just be fine. Oklahoma State, we can't put them up too high. We can't put them down any because you still won. You beat an SEC school, and just beating an SEC school in any shape or form is a crazy, crazy victory. Um, Even if it's Arizona, even if it's Vanderbilt, it's still a win is a win in the SEC. And Utah, Oklahoma State, at least it was still a battle, but you still won. You still showed us a reason why you're a good team in overtime. LSU, the only reason you're coming down a little bit is because of your struggle win and because some of these other teams just outperformed you. Clemson moving up just based off of other teams falling, and Kansas State moving up 3 up to 16 after a little bit of a struggle against Tulane, but like Kieran said, it was
We appear
embarrassing.
to have. Oh, he's back. He's back. Okay.
How far did I get?
Something about Tulane.
Okay, so kind of what Kieran said. Kansas State played Tulane, and a win is a win nonetheless. Kansas State still moves up to 16. Oklahoma, this is where the struggles kicked in. Oklahoma played Houston Cougars in a horrible, horrible game. How can you call yourself a SEC school and then put up 16 points and let the other team put up 14? Just keep that in the back of your head whenever the Red River rivalry comes around because it is looking more distant and more distant each day because I have a good feeling Texas is going to have a fun game in Dallas. Michigan got rampaged, got ran through by Texas in every single way, and you can't win it. You can't play that bad in your own big house with the 111,000 people in the stands and not expect to drop that far. Iowa State, great, great, great win against your rivals, Iowa, and it was a great matchup and way to come from behind. Rocco back, amazing game. Nebraska, Patrick Mahomes, question mark, question mark. I mean, they wear the same number. They have the same hairstyle. They wear the same glasses. It might be him. And yes, they embarrassed Travis Hunter and they embarrassed Shador Sanders. Travis Hunter is still a premier athlete, but Shador Sanders is not one. And I honestly don't even want to blame him because that offensive line was pitiful. It was hard to watch that game, especially when it went 28-3 in favor of Nebraska. So just keep that in mind. Notre Dame, you dropped 12. I'm not even going to diss you anymore. You lost to Northern Illinois, so I think you would put yourself that low too. And by logical reasoning, you have to go below Notre Dame. So have fun at 22. And Louisville, welcome to the power rankings. Arizona, welcome to the power rankings. And lastly, Kyle McCord, great way to throw for 700 yards in 2 games. You are now in the power rankings. So that wraps up your BFER poll for this week. And then some notable exits, of course, are the following teams: Florida State, Kentucky, NC State, and Iowa. Florida State, not need to be said. You're 0-2 frauds. Kentucky, you lost South Carolina, fraud. NC State, you got embarrassed, fraud. And Iowa, I can't even really say that you're a fraud because you're still a really good squad. It's just you lost to Iowa State. So, peace. That's all I have. Kieran, anything else to add?
No, thank y'all for listening. We're trying to get more videos out. It's been busy, if you can imagine. But yeah, great college football season so far. Looking for it to get better.
Yep. And we will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.